To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. It's a powerful reminder that love is risky, and perhaps that's why many of us prefer to speak of unselfishness. It's easier to focus on what we give up, what we deny ourselves, than to open our hearts fully to the selfless love that Christ calls us to. But let me ask you this: have you ever felt that in your efforts to be good and unselfish, you've missed the point of what it means to truly love? Have you found yourself empty, burnt out from giving, and yet not feeling the fullness of love? We live in a world that has often misunderstood love, mistaking it for mere sacrifice. We glorify unselfishness as if it's the pinnacle of virtue. But in doing so, we create a negative ideal, one that focuses on what we lack, what we withhold, rather than the abundance we are called to share. But this isn't the picture of love that Jesus gives us. Jesus' message isn't about losing yourself in the act of denying every desire. It's about finding yourself in love, a love that gives, not out of emptiness or mere duty, but from fullness and joy. The New Testament speaks of self-denial, yes, but it does not stop there. Self-denial is the path to deeper love, to becoming more like Christ, to opening our hearts to God's desires for us and for others. When we deny ourselves, it's not about martyrdom for the sake of self-punishment. It's about clearing away the obstacles that keep us from loving deeply and sacrificially. Consider how Christ calls us to take up our cross daily and follow Him, not to glorify our suffering, but to live in a way that overflows with love for God and others. So ask yourself, are you holding back out of fear or insecurity, afraid that true love might break you, make you vulnerable, or reveal your deepest wounds? So many of us carry scars, pain from broken relationships, unmet needs, the longing for acceptance, and it's tempting to guard our hearts with the armor of unselfishness, thinking that if we simply go without, we will somehow achieve virtue. But that is not the way of Christ. He does not ask us to live in fear of loss or to shrink from the desires He's placed within us. He wants us to love boldly, to love vulnerably, to love as He has loved us. The path of love is not one of merely denying ourselves, but of giving ourselves fully, embracing the joy and pain that comes with true, sacrificial love. Think about it. What would happen if you shifted your focus from what you're going without to what you're actually giving? To love means to open yourself up, to risk pain, to risk being truly seen, and that can be terrifying. But it is also the path to the deepest fulfillment. The journey of love is not easy, but it is the calling of every Christian to move from the negative space of unselfishness to the positive action of love. Stay with me as we dive deeper into how this kind of love changes everything, how it transforms not just the way we interact with the world, but the way we see ourselves in God. Let me know your thoughts below. What resonates with you? What are your struggles and desires when it comes to living out this kind of love? Let's continue this journey together. Can I get a bless the Lord from you?
Is it possible that deep down we underestimate the strength of our true desires, believing we must suppress them to lead a good life? C.S. Lewis suggests that our yearning for joy is not a flaw, but a faint whisper of something far greater. Imagine standing before a feast, yet being content with crumbs because you've never known true satisfaction. This is how Lewis describes humanity's tendency to settle for fleeting pleasures, whether through ambition, pleasure, or fame, when infinite joy is within reach. It's not that we want too much, rather, we are too easily satisfied, grasping for what we think is enough without realizing that God offers far more.
Consider the analogy of a child in a slum who delights in making mud pies, unaware of the wonder of a seaside holiday. This child doesn't lack desire, he simply lacks a vision of what could be. In the same way, Lewis challenges us to awaken to the grander promises found in the Gospels. The reward God offers is not a transactional prize, it is the fulfillment of our deepest longings. Is there a yearning in your heart that seems too extravagant to ask for? What if, instead of dismissing it, you saw it as a hint of the joy God desires for you? Lewis also addresses a common misconception that seeking a reward in faith makes it a mercenary pursuit. But consider the distinction between rewards, one that is disconnected from the action and another that flows naturally from it. a soldier who fights for honor rather than money, or a lover who longs for union rather than gain, pursues a reward that consummates their passion. Similarly, the reward God promises is not tacked onto our faith like a prize at the end of a race. It is the culmination of the relationship, the blossoming of love into fullness. To desire such a reward is not mercenary but the proper completion of love and purpose, like the embrace that follows a long-awaited reunion. So, what if we dared to desire fully, to hope boldly, and to embrace the reward God promises with open hearts? Are we ready to leave behind our mud pies and step toward the endless joy of God's invitation? Consider the journey of a child beginning to learn Greek, a daunting maze of grammar rules, endless vocabulary, and complex syntax. At first, it feels like an obligation, a task done for marks, to avoid punishment, or to please one's parents. There's little joy in the rote memorization of verb conjugations. The student cannot yet imagine the beauty hidden behind those technicalities, the lyrical verses of Sophocles, or the nuanced expressions of Greek thought. The labor is mechanical, like tilling soil without knowing the nature of the seeds being planted. And yet, slowly, something changes. Enjoyment seeps in, unexpectedly, like light piercing a dense fog. One day, the rhythm of a Greek poem resonates, and what was once drudgery becomes a source of delight, a reward that suddenly makes all the hard work seem worthwhile. But this transition is gradual. There's no precise moment when the struggle turns into love. It evolves, much like the tide lifting a stranded ship. How often do we find ourselves in similar positions in our spiritual journey? As C.S. Lewis insightfully puts it, the Christian, in relation to heaven, is in much the same position as this schoolboy. We, in our earthly discipleship, begin our walk with God often out of duty, fear, or even a sense of obligation. Like the young learner of Greek, we may not yet understand the beauty of the ultimate reward, communion with God in heaven. We follow God's laws, not always with joy, but with a sense of duty, discipline, or hope for future blessings we can barely envision. At times, it might seem like mere obedience to a distant promise, but there is a quiet transformation happening beneath the surface. As we obey, a deeper longing grows within us, a desire that is its own preliminary reward. In Mere Christianity, Lewis reminds us, the Christian says, creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists. Could it be that our longing for heaven, like the child's growing enjoyment of Greek poetry, is a sign that we are moving toward the ultimate satisfaction of that desire? Obedience, at first a struggle, begins to transform into a longing, a yearning for God that goes beyond any fear of mercenary motives. As the desire matures, so does our understanding, until the fear that we are seeking God for selfish reasons fades away as unfounded. Just as grammar turns into poetry, and the law gives way to the gospel, our obedience gradually becomes a joyful pursuit of God, the longing lifting us closer to Him, like the tide lifting a ship to sail into deeper waters. Reflect on this. What are the desires growing within you, even in the midst of your struggles? Could it be that, like the schoolboy finding joy in Greek, your obedience is leading you to an unexpected delight, a deeper relationship with God? And if so, what greater reward could there be than to find joy in the journey itself, as you are being drawn closer to the divine? Imagine a young boy, his heart and mind captivated by the poetry of his native language, Shakespeare, Shelley, or Keats, drawn to their beauty even before he understands the depth of the words on the page. He may be passionately flipping through these pages, a secret delight, even at the cost of his Greek studies. Unbeknownst to him, that very desire which leads him to poetry is the same yearning that Greek grammar, with all its complexities, will one day fulfill, opening a door to an even greater literary world. It's as if the longing for beauty is already rooted within him, waiting to find its proper object. How often are we like this boy, enthralled by earthly pleasures, believing they hold the key to satisfaction, not realizing they are but shadows pointing to something infinitely greater? C.S. Lewis, in his characteristic introspection, touches on this longing, a secret we all carry, often unspoken yet deeply felt. He suggests that the human heart holds a desire for something it has not yet fully experienced, but is constantly hinted at by the world around us. This inconsolable secret, as Lewis calls it, is not easily named. We might dismiss it as nostalgia, a yearning for a lost past, or simply romanticism. But why do these fleeting moments of beauty, the breathtaking sunset, the moving melody, or the thrill of a story, stir something deeper within us? Why do they seem to awaken a homesickness for a place we cannot quite remember? Lewis argues that these moments do not contain the fullness of what we seek. They are mere hints, echoes, and glimpses of a country we have never yet visited. Have you ever found yourself moved to tears by a song or overwhelmed by the grandeur of nature, only to find the feeling slipping through your fingers like water? That's the essence of the human condition, a constant reaching for the infinite through the finite. The poet Wordsworth might have tried to capture such moments, linking them to memories of his past, but these recollections are only signposts, pointing to a deeper truth that can never be fully grasped in our earthly experience. Lewis goes further to describe these earthly joys as good images of our true desire. However, if we mistake the image for the reality, if we think the pleasure of beauty is the ultimate end, then we turn these glimpses into idols, and idols, in their silence, break the hearts of those who worship them. Have you ever felt that pang of disappointment when something you thought would fulfill you, whether it be a dream, a relationship, or an achievement, falls short? These longings, these experiences of beauty, are like the scent of a flower we have not yet seen, the echo of a tune we have never fully heard. They are news from a far-off land, beckoning us toward our true home. The beauty we encounter in this world, then, is not the destination, it is merely the path that hints at a greater reality. If we are made for heaven, every earthly pleasure is simply a signpost, guiding our hearts toward that eternal joy that will never disappoint. And perhaps that is the challenge, to learn to see these longings not as ends in themselves, but as the whispers of a God calling us to something far greater than we can imagine. Can we live in the tension of longing for what we have not yet experienced, trusting that the one who placed the desire within us will also lead us to its fulfillment? C.S. Lewis once said, "We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us." Have you ever wondered why we settle for less, why we feel this gnawing emptiness despite chasing every worldly promise of fulfillment? There's a spell over our hearts, a bewitchment by the distractions of the world that leads us to believe that what we see, touch, and possess here is all there is. For over a century, the loud hum of modernity has tried to drown out that quiet, persistent whisper of eternity within us. It's not just a question of noise, but of intent, how philosophies and teachings strive to convince us that our purpose, our meaning, can be found here on earth. But can it? We are constantly told that progress and evolution will lead us to a perfect world, a heaven on earth. Yet the promise of that utopia always seems to lie just out of reach, a dream of a future always deferred. When Lewis speaks of enchantments and spells, he refers to this illusion that the world is our final home. Consider how earthly philosophies try to persuade us that all our longings can be satisfied here. First, they tell us that we can make heaven on earth, to soothe our deep-seated sense of being out of place, alienated from our true home. But if heaven on earth were truly possible, why does it feel so unattainable, so far into the future? And even if that future comes, what of death, the shadow that falls on all earthly pleasures and dreams? Lewis masterfully draws our attention to the tragic flaw in this thinking. No matter how much pleasure, progress, or perfection we achieve on earth, it is temporary, fleeting, like a mist that fades with the morning sun. This is the nonsense he refers to, the idea that even the most triumphant human achievement can evade the inevitable decay, can outlast the grave. Do you ever feel that longing for something more, a yearning for a joy beyond what the world offers? That is the inner voice, the divine longing, calling us to awaken to the truth that our real home, our true heaven, lies beyond the bounds of earth's enchantment. It's not about denying the world, but breaking the spell that blinds us to the eternal. Have you ever felt an unquenchable longing, a sense that no earthly joy can truly fulfill you. C.S. Lewis poignantly captures this in his exploration of human desire, suggesting that our deepest yearnings hint at something beyond our immediate reality. Just as physical hunger indicates the need for sustenance, our spiritual hunger points towards a greater existence. Lewis writes in The Great Divorce, "There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal," emphasizing that our desires are not random but purposeful, guiding us toward divine fulfillment. Have you considered whether your longing for paradise is merely a fleeting thought or a profound indication of its true existence? Lewis often used stories, like those in the Chronicles of Narnia, to illustrate how our aspirations reflect a deeper spiritual truth. When he asks, "What you see and what you hear depends a good deal on where you are standing," he invites us to reflect on our perspectives and the sources of our desires. Isn't it intriguing to ponder whether our dreams of heaven are just symbols, much like Lewis suggests, representing a reality we can scarcely imagine? This contemplation leads us to understand that while our visions of paradise might initially seem distant or abstract, they carry the weight of authoritative imagery that has endured through centuries of Christian thought. Lewis reminds us that embracing these symbols requires stepping beyond our comfort zones, much like the boy who finds Sophocles dull compared to Shelley's vibrant poetry. Have you ever felt that your spiritual journey demands more than what feels immediately appealing, challenging you to seek a truth that lies beyond your natural inclinations? By delving into Lewis's insights, we begin to see our desires not as random whims but as meaningful indicators guiding us toward a divine reality, fostering a deeper empathy and understanding of our own spiritual quests. In the rich tapestry of faith, we often encounter threads that bewilder or even repel us. C.S. Lewis, in his profound exploration of the Christian experience, emphasizes that such perplexities are not obstacles but rather gateways to deeper understanding. When we approach our beliefs with curiosity, we unlock the hidden treasures they hold. Lewis reminds us that our journey is illuminated by the promise of being in communion with Christ, a truth so foundational that it invites us to reflect on its depth. But let us ask ourselves, what does it truly mean to be with Christ? Is it merely physical proximity, or does it encompass a profound spiritual connection that transcends our earthly experiences? Lewis posits that our understanding of this promise can often become entangled in our limited perspectives. We might envision a relationship with Christ akin to our human interactions, filled with conversation and companionship. Yet, in doing so, we risk overshadowing the divine majesty of his nature. The renowned author asserts that he who is God and everything else has no more than he who is God only. This statement compels us to ponder our own desires. Do we seek Christ for who he is, or for what he can provide? The first promise of being with him is paramount, yet it also necessitates a broader vision, one that recognizes the myriad blessings that flow from his presence. The promises of Scripture, while multifaceted, serve to enrich our understanding of that singular promise of unity with Christ. Lewis suggests that the imagery of glory, feasting, and our future roles within the divine plan are not mere embellishments but vital symbols that help us grasp the fullness of God's nature. How might we interpret these symbols in our lives? What do they reveal about our expectations and aspirations? For instance, the promise of glory invites us to consider our inherent value as children of God, destined for something far greater than our current circumstances. Likewise, the notion of ruling cities and judging angels challenges us to embrace our identity within God's kingdom, stirring within us a sense of purpose and belonging. However, let us also recognize the limitations of our symbols. When we confine our understanding of divine presence to personal love or earthly joys, we risk crafting an image of God that is too small, too simplistic. In Lewis's insight lies a reminder that the variety of promises serves to correct our narrow visions and expand our comprehension of divine joy. This complexity reflects God's multifaceted nature, calling us to embrace a spectrum of experiences that will ultimately lead to our greatest bliss. So, I invite you to reflect on your relationship with Christ and the promises that shape your faith. What images do you conjure when you think of his presence? How might they evolve as you delve deeper into the richness of his promises? In grappling with these questions, you may uncover layers of understanding that illuminate your path, reminding you that the journey of faith is as much about exploration as it is about belief. In contemplating the profound concept of glory, we find ourselves navigating through its intricate layers, particularly as illuminated by the insights of C.S. Lewis. Within the New Testament and early Christian texts, glory appears prominently, often tied to vivid imagery, crowns, thrones, and radiance akin to the sun and stars. However, does this idea resonate with you, or does it seem distant and unappealing? As we delve deeper, we might wonder, what does glory mean to us in our daily lives? For many of us, like Lewis, the notion of glory evokes mixed feelings, often bordering on the unsettling. Lewis articulates a perspective that separates glory from the traditional ideas of fame and brilliance, which often seem more competitive than celebratory. He poses a critical question: why do we seek recognition? Is our longing for fame a mere reflection of earthly ambition, drawing us away from the heavenly splendor that true glory embodies, instead of aspiring to be the center of attention? Lewis suggests that glory is not about becoming a living electric light bulb, but rather about the approval of God, a divine recognition that transcends human validation. Reflecting on this, we may remember Jesus' words in the parable, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." This divine accolade shifts our understanding of glory from mere recognition to a profound acknowledgement of our faithfulness. Here lies a powerful truth: the desire for approval from our Creator is not only valid but essential. Have you ever paused to consider the simple joy of pleasing God, much like a child basking in the praise of a loving parent? This childlike pleasure, often lost amidst adult complexities, reveals the core of our longing for divine approval. In his exploration, Lewis recalls the innocent delight of a child receiving praise, a sentiment echoed in our relationships with pets and loved ones. This resonates deeply. Are we not all creatures yearning for connection and approval? Yet, as we navigate this desire, it is crucial to discern between pure satisfaction in pleasing God and the dangerous allure of self-admiration. This tension raises important questions. How do we balance our desire for approval with humility? Can we truly embrace the notion that our worth is not determined by human accolades but by our relationship with God? Lewis urges us to reflect on the fleeting moment before self-admiration takes hold, a moment where the joy of having pleased those we love remains pure. In this space, we glimpse the transformative power of divine approval. When a redeemed soul realizes she has truly pleased her Creator, the weight of pride dissipates, replaced by a profound sense of belonging and purpose. This moment of recognition, free from the taint of self-approval, offers an antidote to our deepest insecurities. As we ponder these insights, let us embrace the truth that perfect humility is not about downplaying our worth, but rather understanding our identity as beloved creations of God. When we align our pursuits with His approval, we experience a freedom unlike any other. In this light, Lewis challenges us to reconsider our ambitions, urging us to focus on the divine call to be faithful stewards of the gifts we have received. Ultimately, let us cultivate a heart that finds joy in pleasing God above all else. How might our lives change if we prioritize this divine approval over worldly recognition? Embracing this perspective invites us into a deeper relationship with our Creator, allowing us to experience the fullness of glory as He intended. As we reflect on these themes, we are reminded that true glory lies not in self-promotion but in the simple, profound pleasure of being the children of God, delighting in His love and affirmation. In moments of introspection, one might ponder the concept of heaven and question whether it merely serves as a comforting notion where we receive mere pats on the back for our earthly deeds. However, this skepticism often stems from a misguided pride. C.S. Lewis reminds us that the ultimate reality of heaven revolves around the profound encounter with God, the Creator whose presence can evoke either a sense of glory or deep-seated shame. This dichotomy underscores a crucial truth: each of us will face a divine judgment, a moment where we stand before Him, not just as beings seeking approval, but as souls yearning for connection and recognition. Reflecting on Lewis's insight, we must ask ourselves, how do we truly perceive our relationship with God? Is our understanding shaped more by our perceptions or by the divine perspective? For in the grand tapestry of existence, what matters most is not how we think of God, but rather how He perceives us. This thought echoes the biblical promise that one day we will stand before Him, where we will be scrutinized and examined, not as mere spectators but as cherished creations. Imagine the overwhelming glory promised to those who choose to believe, glory made possible through Christ's redemptive work, which enables us to withstand that divine scrutiny. Lewis eloquently posits that the weight of this glory can feel almost unbearable. It challenges our understanding and expands our hearts. It is a daunting thought that to please God, truly please Him, means to be an integral part of His joy, not simply recipients of His compassion but objects of His delight. Can we fathom the idea that we are loved by God, not out of obligation but out of genuine affection, like an artist who takes pride in a masterpiece or a parent who beams with joy at their child's achievements? Such love transforms our understanding of existence. It compels us to strive not for superficial accolades but for a deeper connection to the divine happiness that comes from being known and accepted by Him. As we navigate our spiritual journeys, we must remain mindful of the incredible promise that awaits us. It invites us to reflect on our lives with honesty and humility. Are we living in a way that invites divine approval, nurturing a relationship that extends beyond mere duty into the realm of delight? Each day, as we cultivate our faith and deepen our understanding of God's nature, let us remember that this journey is not merely about avoiding shame but embracing the profound glory and joy that comes from being in communion with our Creator. In doing so, we allow ourselves to fully engage in the glorious reality of heaven, transforming our inner thoughts and pains into an offering of love and gratitude. Through faith, we not only find meaning but also share in the divine happiness that makes us whole. In the exploration of our deepest longings, we often grapple with a sense of disconnection, much like C.S. Lewis eloquently articulated in his reflections on longing and belonging. Have you ever felt that elusive pull towards something greater, only to be met with the stark reality of solitude? Lewis pointed out that if we cling to mere vague desires without grounding ourselves in the teachings of Scripture, we may find ourselves adrift, lacking clarity and connection. Yet, when we dare to engage with the complexities of our spiritual inquiries, as Lewis did, the pathway to understanding illuminates. He writes, "If we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world." This perspective invites us to pause and consider, what if our spiritual longings are not merely whimsical distractions but profound indicators of our true purpose? By daring to confront the challenging aspects of faith in Scripture, we can unearth a clearer relationship between our inner desires and the divine promises offered to us. The more we delve into the depths of our faith, the more we can see how glory, often perceived as something distant, actually resonates with our core desires for acceptance and recognition. Reflecting on this connection, we might realize that the moments of beauty we experience, whether in a breathtaking sunset or a piece of art, often leave us yearning for more. As Lewis suggests, we may feel that the music ends, or as the landscape loses the celestial light. And in that moment, we awaken to our yearning for belonging. It can be disheartening to realize that while beauty may glance in our direction, it often feels as if we remain mere spectators, observing a dance in which we are not invited to participate. Consider the bittersweet truth behind this yearning. It is not the physical beauty itself that eludes us, but the deeper message it conveys, a message that seems to whisper truths we can barely grasp. This sense of alienation can lead to a poignant longing, a desire to be seen, acknowledged, and embraced by something larger than ourselves. In our quest for connection, we may ask ourselves, how often do we feel like strangers in our own lives? How can we bridge the gap between our aspirations and our reality? The Christian promise of glory serves as a profound antidote to this pain. It embodies the assurance of being welcomed into the heart of existence by God, a recognition of our worthiness, and an invitation to truly belong. As we knock on the door of divine acceptance, we may find it opening to reveal not just a glimpse of glory but the profound reality that we are known and cherished. In that moment of realization, our inconsolable secret transforms into a vibrant truth that we are not mere observers but participants in a grand narrative woven by love and grace. By embracing these reflections, we find a deeper understanding of our spiritual longings. We realize that our desires point towards a reality that transcends mere existence, a reality in which we are invited to dance, to belong, and to be fully seen. In the warmth of this promise, we can shed the burden of loneliness and step into a life rich with purpose and divine acknowledgement, allowing our hearts to echo with the beauty that surrounds us and the glory that awaits us. In contemplating the nature of glory, one might initially consider it as merely the act of being recognized by God, a notion that may feel simplistic or even crude. Yet, this concept resonates deeply with the New Testament's teachings. St. Paul offers a perplexing promise to those who hold love for God, not that they will necessarily come to know Him, but rather that they will be known by Him. 1 Corinthians 8 verse 3. This raises an intriguing question. What does it truly mean to be known by the Creator of all things? Does God, who exists outside the constraints of time, require acknowledgement of us to fulfill His omniscience? This mystery is compounded by the stark warning found in Matthew 7 verse 23, where we face the terrifying possibility of standing before God only to hear the chilling words, "I never knew you, depart from me." But how can it be that we, in our finite existence, can find ourselves alienated from the very source of our being, banished from the presence of the one who is ever present? The notion is almost unbearable, yet it serves as a sobering reminder of the profound choices we make each day. On one hand, we exist in a state of estrangement, feeling perpetually exiled from a divine connection that our souls yearn for. Conversely, we are offered the possibility of being welcomed, embraced, and acknowledged by God, an invitation to enter into His presence that fills our lives with purpose and joy. As C.S. Lewis profoundly articulates, this persistent longing we experience is not a mere psychological phenomenon, but rather a reflection of our true condition. It is the echo of a desire for wholeness in a world that often feels fragmented. We walk the delicate line between being cast out and being invited in, an existence suspended between the realities of despair and hope. This longing to reunite with the divine, to transcend the barriers that keep us feeling isolated, reveals the depth of our inner struggles. What does it mean for you to yearn for that connection? In what ways do you find yourself seeking to bridge the gap between your heart and the divine? Moreover, when we speak of glory, we often visualize it as a radiant brilliance, an ethereal light that signifies divine presence. Scripture invites us to reflect on the beauty of creation, to aspire to shine as brightly as the sun, and to be gifted the morning star. Yet, even in these fleeting moments of appreciation for nature's beauty, we find ourselves desiring more than a passive experience of admiration. We yearn for a communion with that beauty, a fusion of our essence with the splendor that surrounds us. What do you think lies at the core of this desire to merge with beauty? Lewis insightfully points out that our literature and mythology echo this truth, expressing our deepest wishes to connect with the beauty we observe. The gods and goddesses of ancient tales embody the yearning we feel, capturing our desire for an intimate relationship with the divine. These poetic reflections may not convey historical accuracy, yet they resonate with profound truth regarding our spiritual aspirations. If we embrace the biblical imagery, recognizing that God promises us both the morning star and the splendor of the sun, we begin to glimpse the essence of our faith and assurance that one day we shall truly bask in divine radiance, becoming one with the glory that is both our longing and our destiny.
In this light, the truths captured in both sacred and secular narratives reveal a profound prophecy that invites us to embrace the journey of faith with hope and anticipation. Let us ponder, how can we actively seek this connection today? How might we open our hearts to the divine, allowing that light to transform our lives and illuminate the path for others?
In this moment of our existence, we find ourselves standing at the threshold of a profound reality, a reality that remains tantalizingly out of reach, like an elusive door just beyond our grasp. We catch glimpses of the dawn's freshness and purity, yet we feel an aching disconnect, as if we're merely spectators of a beauty we cannot fully participate in. C.S. Lewis poignantly captures this essence when he writes about the longing for a deeper connection with the divine, reminding us that our current state is but a shadow of what is to come. Have you ever felt this longing, an inner desire to immerse yourself in a greater splendor, to be part of something truly magnificent? The New Testament whispers promises of a glorious future where the barriers we face will be shattered. It tells us that there will come a time when human souls will be perfected, mirroring the effortless obedience of the natural world. Lewis warns us not to misinterpret this as a desire to merge with nature itself. Nature, while beautiful and majestic, is transient. Our essence will transcend the physical realm, surviving even when the stars and galaxies fade away. Each of us holds within us a spark of eternity, waiting to be ignited. What does it mean to you to be part of something eternal, something beyond the confines of this earthly existence? Scripture invites us to look beyond the fleeting pleasures of the world and embrace the deeper joy that lies ahead, a joy that can only be fully realized in our rebirth in Christ. Currently, our spirits reach directly toward God, yet our minds and bodies draw life from distant sources: our ancestry, our sustenance, even the very air we breathe. These filtered pleasures, while intoxicating in their own right, are mere echoes of the true joy that awaits us. Imagine the exhilarating experience of tasting pure joy from the very fountainhead. What a transformative experience that would be. As St. Augustine wisely notes, the joy of the saved soul will overflow into a glorified body, transcending our current understanding of pleasure and fulfillment. Yet, amidst our distorted appetites and fractured perceptions, it is crucial to remember that what is saved is not a mere ghostly remnant of our former selves. Instead, our bodies were crafted for a divine purpose, for the Lord, and the visions of numbness and insensibility are misleading. Our journey does not culminate in a dull existence, but rather in vibrant life and joy. As we navigate the everyday challenges tomorrow's Monday morning, for instance, let us hold on to the assurance that the path through the trials leads us closer to that promised glory. A crack has appeared in the unforgiving walls of our current reality, and we are beckoned to follow our great captain through this opening into a realm filled with divine splendor. Are you ready to step through that threshold, to embrace the journey that awaits beyond this life? Trust in the promise of renewal and transformation, knowing that what lies ahead is far more magnificent than we can currently comprehend. Through faith, we are invited to experience a joy that surpasses our wildest dreams. This is the essence of our calling, the essence of what it means to be truly alive. In our journey of faith, the act of following Christ serves as the cornerstone of our existence, yet it raises essential questions about our perceptions of glory and the inherent value of those around us. What if we were to see our lives not solely through the lens of our own potential, but through the profound implications of our neighbors' destinies? C.S. Lewis poignantly asserts that our understanding of the glory inherent in others must outweigh our own aspirations. He suggests that the weight of our neighbor's glory should rest upon us, a burden that requires immense humility to bear. The prideful will falter under its pressure, yet those who choose humility will be strengthened. As we engage with each other daily, we must recognize that each individual is a canvas of divine potential. Consider this: could it be that the most mundane person you encounter is, in truth, a being of infinite worth, someone who might one day evoke the deepest reverence, or, alternatively, become a distorted reflection of despair? Lewis emphasizes that we inhabit a world filled with potential gods and goddesses, each with the capacity to ascend to glorious heights or descend into despair. This duality calls us to navigate our interactions with immense care and reverence, knowing that every relationship holds the potential for eternal significance. In light of this understanding, how might we conduct our friendships, our loves, and even our casual encounters? Lewis reminds us that there are no ordinary people. Every individual is an immortal soul with an eternal destiny. The institutions we build, nations, cultures, art, are fleeting in comparison to the everlasting essence of the people within them. When we recognize that we are engaging with immortals, our approach to interactions shifts. We must tread lightly, cultivating an atmosphere of respect and sincerity, free from flippancy or superiority. Yet Lewis does not suggest that we dwell in perpetual solemnity. Instead, he invites us to embrace joy, a joy that flourishes among those who genuinely regard each other's worth. Our laughter and merriment should spring from a shared understanding of our serious realities, cultivating a bond that reflects deep-seated affection rather than superficial indulgence. This form of joy is rooted in a sincere charity that acknowledges the imperfections of others while still cherishing them deeply. It is not mere tolerance, but a true, sacrificial love that recognizes the struggles we all face. Indeed, when we consider the presence of Christ within our neighbors, we see them as vessels of holiness. Lewis reminds us that next to the Blessed Sacrament, our neighbor represents the most sacred reality we encounter. For each Christian we meet, Christ dwells within, hidden yet glorified. This divine presence should compel us to treat one another with reverence, acknowledging the beauty and the burden of our interconnected lives. Are we truly aware of the impact we have on each other's eternal destinies? As we continue our journey, may we approach one another with the love and humility that Christ exemplifies, remembering that we are all part of a grand narrative, each person a story of grace and